What up, yo? Hey guys. Welcome, welcome. It's Wendy here, just going live by myself, waiting on people. Gotta love this part. Hey, Chelsea. Hey there. Welcome. Hi, Colleen. All right.
Hello.
Hello. I
I'm
gotta love that first part where I'm just like,
do do
hey,
do. Hope this works. I'm
I am
so
not alone.
I am so glad to be back from the dead.
Oh, I know, the norovirus.
Oh, it was the worst. Have you ever had the norovirus
I don't
before?
think I've ever norovirused.
Oh, you would know. You would know. I cannot believe I missed our conference. I missed all the fun. It sounded like an amazing time, and I was just collecting my son's vomit while I was vomiting myself.
That's great. That
Mhm.
sounds really exciting. How do they test you for the norovirus?
It's more so that just by default, the symptoms that you
Mm.
have, it's
They just look
synonymous.
at you.
They look at you, they know you look like death.
Now they're like,
And
no, get
yeah,
out of here.
oh, there's a rooster crowing in the back.
I'm sorry. I can't sit in my office without the door open. It's like 1,000 degrees, so there might be some creatures in the background.
Well, anyway, everyone, I am glad to be back. We're glad to be back. Wendy was in Vegas. I was having much less fun, but
So
welcome.
true.
So, this is What Do We Know with Wen and Wit, if you're wondering what you're doing and why we're here. Um, we hope today to bring inspiration, perspective, and education about some hot topics and try and meet somewhere in the middle. As you guys are jumping on here, let us know where you're tuning in from. We always love to know. Wendy's Tennessee, I'm California, everywhere in between. If you are catching the replay, type replay below. We'll give you a shout out. As
Woot.
people are coming on, I'd love to say hi to you guys. I have to make it.
Hi, people. I try to wave.
How do you make it show? Okay, wait, I see it
I
now.
don't know.
Hi guys. Hi Chelsea from Tahoe. Um, this is our
Stacy.
Stacy Reno or Renault.
Nope.
Different one.
Stacy Dinkler. She's a Tennessean.
Woohoo! Hi Dana. Hi, welcome guys.
Montana.
As we're still kicking off the series, Wendy, you can keep saying hi to people. We're going to be giving away another free self-care gift.
Woo!
Woo! We decided it's been quite a while. Oh, the UK. I love it.
Ooh, that's right, Joe.
Thanks for
That's
tuning
so funny.
in. So, yeah, we're giving away another gift. We're feeling generous. So, if you want to win it, you have to share this post and tag us in it or
Mhm.
make it public so that we can find it. And then you got to follow us both on Instagram. So it's written in the comments of this video, but also Wendy's is a.wendy.bird and I am Whitney Janelle 28. You follow us, you share it, you're entered to win. It's that simple. We will pick the winner next week. And just some little mumbo jumbo. This promotion is not endorsed or sponsored by Facebook or Instagram. With that being said, my name is Whitney. I am a fur baby mom, a human baby mom, a wife, and a business owner, and I live in Northern California.
And I am Wendy. I'm a wife. I am a mom. I have 3 kiddos and a ton of animals, as you guys know. I'm a business owner, a blogger, an author, and a speaker, and I live in Middle Tennessee. And I'm going to continue in the shameless plug department and ask y'all to go check out my blog at gainingmyperspective.com and subscribe to my newsletter specifically. It'll be right there on the front page. I'm going to send out my first newsletter next week. Watch
Whoop,
out.
whoop.
It's just one time a month I send out a newsletter. So give it a little subscribe.
Did you get it designed
Cool.
by the same lady as who did your website?
I did. The Pixel Pantry.
Cool.
Yeah, she
Awesome.
designed my newsletter. So it'll all be branded. I'll look really professional. And that's how you know I hired someone because clearly I don't know how to be professional in the real
If
life.
you saw it before, you'd know how many big steps she's
Yep.
made.
So many big steps. Awesome. So you guys know the drill. If you're new, this is What Do We Know with Wen and Wit, because we are here, Wen and Wit, trying to create something of our own and help you guys gain some perspective on some issues we always talk about, or things that are weighing on our hearts, concepts that continue to come to our, through our pipeline of conversations. And we're like, dude, let's take this to the masses and let's like make the conversation a little bit bigger. So today we're tackling identity and the battles we face to uphold this. And this one's kind of a little bit of an abstract conversation. So I'm curious to see how this goes. And we so encourage you guys weighing in on stuff and sharing your thoughts as we walk through this. We love to read your comments as we're going. But Wit, do you want to read? I see that you got the definition here of identity. You want to read that, since you obviously didn't come from me?
Those words you don't know how to say.
No, those are very large words. I can't read.
Well, the reason we talked about identity first and foremost is we had decided about this topic, but then I don't know if this has happened to you. I've had it. So many people lately have been talking about things they feel define their identity, or that their identity has been compromised or threatened. And I'm like, that's so funny. We're going to talk about it this week on Facebook Live. So I think it's something that we all struggle with. Maybe we don't fully understand what identity means, or like what it actually is, and what of it we place this unnecessary importance on. But so that's why I thought we'd start with like, what is identity? And identity is defined as from a psychological standpoint, it relates to self-image. So what one's mental model of oneself is, self-esteem, and individuality. You'll notice that none of those things have anything to do with other people's input, right? Yet we place so much importance on how other people will perceive us and our identity and what they might think defines us. And it is the idiosyncratic things, big word, that make a person unique that is truly your identity, right? So it is those defining things about yourself that is actually your identity, yet we are so willing to compromise on those individual attributes to fit in, right? So that's like a very silly dichotomy that we experience. That's why we wanted to dive deep into what really defines our identity, what it really is, and then the main struggles that we've seen with compromising our identities. So quick question to the audience before we dive in. In what ways do you guys feel like you struggle with identity? Like when do you compromise? When do you waver? Or what do you feel super confident about in your identity? What do you own that is yours and exclusive to you? So go ahead, Wen.
So just with you kind of diving into that definition, what comes to mind is just to really capture the irony of it. When you look at like, how are you identified, right? Like your identity. How do you identify someone as an individual? It's your DNA and your fingerprint are the two things that only you have on the whole planet, right? So like truly the identity that you hold is the only thing that separates you from the masses. And yet we want our identity to be somehow related to a group, or
to blend in,
something outside of ourselves, when I think that's where like the true chasm is, that like we're trying to make a thing that is meant to separate us from everybody. We're linking it and tying it to connection with people, right? Like this will go a bunch of different ways and we'll talk about that, but that's just such a funny irony that just came out of that definition right there. But this all kind of came to the forefront just a couple weeks ago. If you know who Tori Hine is, she's a good friend of mine, a regional vice president. And she went through a pretty, she's still walking through it, a pretty significant identity theft. And again, this is a little bit of a mislabeled term, because your identity it was posing as her, right? So they were stealing her and her husband I mean, really dramatically, to compromise every one of their financial accounts, compromise their emails. He had to get a new phone number. It was in their phones, their apps, their stocks. I mean, like, very far reaching. And they're unfortunately in escrow buying a house right now. So that's like the worst time to have your identity compromised, because how funny is it? And this is like the part that was so crazy, is she couldn't even prove who she was to the banks that she's trying to buy the house. She couldn't prove proof of funds because she didn't own the account anymore, right? Like, it was her money, her account, and she couldn't prove it was hers. And that just got, and she posted about, on social media, you might have seen it, that when this happened to her and her husband, life stops, right? I mean, they're on the phone for hours with financial institutions. They're at the DMV, they're at the phone store, you know, AT&T or whatever. Just absolute breaks on all normal things to go to bat for their identity, right? To absolute come to the complete defense of their financial identity.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, on the flip side, every day our identity is threatened, our actual, you know, identity, and we just crumble to it, right? Like, we question, somebody says something that we know isn't true, but all of a sudden we're like, is that true? Right? We do not come guns blazing to defend our identity in the same way that we do to defend our financial identity. Why is that? Where is that coming from, right? And how can we flip that switch so that we are as confident stepping up and saying, no, this is who I am. This is who I am. Let me tell you my definition for myself, because that's what the identity is, right? That's the definition, is how you define it. How do you define yourself? So I just thought that was such a catalyst for this conversation, was her example of that's so true. Like, we don't defend ourselves, and yet here she is, like, going crazy trying to defend her financial self, right? And again, I loved her. Jen's talking about stereotypes.
Yeah, and that's part of it too. That's definitely something that you fall into, right? Like, if it's a negative stereotype, then it feels like a personal attack, when really, as you said, your identity is already decided. You already are the things that make you individual and unique. Yet when somebody questions one of those unique attributes, you're quick to automatically believe it. Like, why are we so willing to hand over the keys to our intellectual, you know, freedoms and intellectual things that we should be proud of? And why do we care so much what people think about us, what people call us, what people, you know, say about us? This makes us question the nature of our identity, right? We feel like we're being fraudulent. Go ahead.
Totally. I just say we own that, you know, like, we take that on as like a piece of our identity, whatever, you know, someone thinks or says or calls us. You know, sometimes people have nicknames or whatever, that you're like, oh, I'm the baby of the family, because that's, you know, so then they own that as some sort of piece of their identity, because maybe that's how they were treated, or that's how the family unit was designed. It's like, well, maybe that's not at all a part of who you are. It's just what you've accepted from other people, right?
Thank you, Jen. I'm so glad to be feeling better. She just said, glad you're feeling better. I was going to say, on this topic of personal attacks, my friend is in between changing jobs, and she's in a small town. And she was saying, like, you know, as much as I'm miserable in this job and I know I need a change, I just don't want to deal with what people are going to say about me, and it's going to get around this town and all of this stuff. And she was feeling as if her identity was being compromised. And the reality of the situation is, those people talking about her take nothing away from who she is, right? But you feel so strongly attached to other people, how other people view you. And that's just such an interesting concept.
So why don't we spend more time reflecting on who we are, what we love about ourselves, what our strengths are? You know, because it is true. This is the fun little irony too. It's true that we don't think, or other people don't think about us as much as we think about us.
Totally.
Right. I mean, we know that. We know we're all just so busy thinking about ourselves and what other people are thinking about us. And the truth is, no one's thinking about us. We're all thinking about our own selves. Right. So if that's true, like, it's so funny that we do get, I mean, we know that that's true. We know that, like, I'm not self-centered enough to think that, like, my neighbors are sitting around spending hours of their day thinking about Thomas and I. Now, I know that, you know, they drive by and Tom's wearing his short shorts doing farming activities. And so, hey, surely they must think something about that right in that moment. But it's like, I'm sure then they get home and they don't think anything else about it, you know, but here we are like, oh, they must be thinking this. And, you know, it just is like this we spend so much time wondering and so concerned about and owning and defining ourselves based on things we don't even know people are thinking, right? We're not even sure
assumptions
what people are thinking, but assumptions, which we know what assuming does. But yeah, that's so interesting. And someone was saying, yeah,
they're worried about the pigs.
Pigs, yeah. Why are the pigs in the yard? Exactly. But yeah, someone said things like our circumstances, our past mistakes. I love that. That's a really good one to have brought up, because we totally, and that goes back to what we talked about the last time, was guilt versus shame. Guilt is I feel bad for the behavior, and shame is I am bad. Do you know what I mean? Like the difference between that, and you can have guilt about a mistake you've made, and then oftentimes people, I am that mistake.
Right.
I'm living in that, right? I'm owning that as part of my identity. That's so slippery slopey.
Self-consuming. It can really be, you know, self-identity. When we're talking about identity, we're talking about like how you view yourself, yet it's like almost self-deprecating would be a more accurate, unfortunate truth, because we take on the negative and internalize that, and we take our past bad experiences and we say like, this is who I am. I've made this mistake and it's who I am. And that's not the case. We're constantly evolving too. You know, we're learning new parts of ourselves also.
So on the flip side, this just occurred to me, it's not just always negative, right? Sometimes people say, you're so good at this or that, and then you own that as part of what, you know, oh, if I'm good at that, maybe you are good at that, but you don't love it. But then that's a piece of what you feel like you're supposed to be doing because people think you're good at that, right? Or do you know what I'm saying? Like
totally.
that can also be a piece of it, that like, I don't want to do that though, or that's not who I am, or that's not what brings me joy, or whatever. But we find ourselves stuck in it because people think we're good at that, you know. And I know Thomas talked about that a lot when he was in music in the band, and it was such a big thing for our hometown for them to be a part of this band. And every time he ran into anyone anywhere, how's the band, how's the music, how's the band? I mean, that was who he was to these people. And he felt really trapped in, I'm not allowed to talk about anything else. Like I have to report on how music is going to everybody, because that's like who I am to these people, right? I found that really interesting too, because it wasn't a negative thing for him. It was just a positive thing he found himself trapped into. So
yeah,
it can go both ways.
So that's like what you were saying about a personal attachment to certain aspect, right? So whether it be your job, like in Tom's case, that was how he made a living, was as a musician. Who we're living with, like you had talked about the victim mentality of, you feel like you're a product of your circumstance. Yeah. I
mean, sometimes you're in a bad relationship and you take on that role again and again in a relationship. I mean, I did that, right? Where again and again, I found myself as the victim side of this relationship situation, and it was repeating, right? And that's not who I am. It's that's what I was putting on, if that makes sense.
Totally.
That's not who I am when you dig deep and really, you know, give yourself a different assignment. But yeah.
And I think it's great that you said the reflection piece as a tool. Like it's important for so many reasons to self-reflect and kind of just take inventory on where you are and how you're feeling, because the same kind of thing, my friend recently moved away from this house, this town, this house, this life that she knew her whole life. And in the last year, she's really struggled to feel like she belonged there, right? And there was nothing bad happening. There was no ill will, nobody attacking her, but she just constantly was so clinging to her old identity. And then she realized, after doing some reflecting, my life has changed. So whether I stick in the past and live this identity that is no longer serving me and no longer my identity, it's no longer part of who I am, right? And now she had this realization, like, no, why not just own my life, own that my circumstances have changed, and still realize that your identity is still there nonetheless, you know? So interesting.
Totally. So all these things, and we can kind of loop this last point in on this, is where does identity come from? Like, what is, we talked about the definition of identity is basically, let's go back to it real quick, self-assigned, right? I mean, it relates to your self-image, your self-esteem, and your individuality. Okay. So if you were to use the tool of reflection as a tool, the tool of reflection as a tool, don't use it as a weapon. I don't know what else you could use it as. You might be able to discover that. And I do that often, you know, to kind of discover even something. So this is just kind of coming to me as we're chatting, but my brand, right? Like when you look at, if you were to brand yourself, that's a good tool or a good exercise. If you were to brand your individual self, what would be your tagline? You know, like Nike's brand is just do it. Like they're all about empowerment, like take action, jump in, do it, you know. So what are you about if you were to pick just a handful of words to define your individual self, right? So it wouldn't, that's so tricky because it really limits your dialogue. It really limits the things because you can't associate it with, well, I'm a wife. No, that's actually not a part of your identity necessarily. It's a title you carry. And this is something, again, Tori Hines said to me once, and oh my gosh, it was just so wise, that I use it as a guide for my own life, is if it can be taken away from you, it's not who you are. And I feel like this is why divorce can be so crippling to the identity, is we take on our identity of our partner in a lot of ways, or of being a wife now puts an identity on me. That's just a title that's put on you. So if you can lose that, which we can, right? I mean, you can even lose, I hate to say it, you can even lose a child, right? Like you can have titles stripped off of you. Who are you before all that? Who are you? And we were talking about, like, you're not named baby by your parents, but you are a baby. But you're not named baby, right? You're given something else, something beyond just like where you're at in your life, right? Because they know you're going to evolve. Your life is going to evolve. So you're going to hold lots of titles. You're going to be lots of things over the course of your life. But your personality, like I have 3 kids, they have very different personalities, right? I mean, you were very stubborn as a child and as an adult, right? Like, hey, I don't know what would be said about me. I'm definitely also very stubborn or strong-willed or whatever, right? I mean, there are things that come out of you early on. They're not things, when you see a 3-year-old, that 3-year-old is just being exactly who that 3-year-old was created to be. They haven't accepted any outside identities yet, right? So like, how can we strip all that away and really discover what's at the root of us? Like, who are we at the root of us? Like, what are my personality traits? What are my values just as an individual?
Right.
You know, like, that's tricky.
And yeah, make no mistake, we're not saying it's easy to own and identify who you are and what makes you unique, especially because of external pressures. And especially because a lot of us do feel a huge emotional attachment to our titles. Like, I definitely feel like part of who I am is a wife and a mother. But you're right, that is not my unique identity. And it's hard to break all that down, to take all the layers away that society puts on you, or people, you know, just external, all kinds of external values are placed on you. that you may
Right.
think are you, but they're not your original thoughts. They're not your original being. So make no mistake, we're not saying it's easy. And I wasn't going to throw Wendy under the bus, but I guess she was just ready to throw me under.
What? Yeah, assign me. What am I? You're stubborn. What am I?
Same. Absolutely.
Dramatic. I'm dramatic. That used to be the thing that would make me nuts when
That
I
would
was
make
like,
her
when people would
chase
call
me.
me, you're being so dramatic. I'm like, bah! And then I would like fully be dramatic about it. But that is a part of me. I am dramatic. I'll say it. But yeah, isn't that funny that you can like look back before I was a mom? Who was I? Because I didn't just change because a human came out of my body. Like,
Right.
right? I mean, you have these like, that was a title that was given to me. That was an additional part of what I love, but it's not who I am. And it'll shape my identity. It might change my values, but and of course this has to be said. You guys know where I'm coming from in my faith journey, that so much of this comes from your creator, or right, like in my heart, I know that I am who my creator says I am. And we know that's so paralleled because so much of our identity is shaped by our parents. So we know
Right.
the weight of a creator assigning things to us, right? And that's the perfect creator versus the human creator. And so we can see the things that we own from our parents are maybe flawed and not true also, but the things that we own from our creator are perfect because we were essentially designed by our creator. But have to say that because it's an anchor.
That reminds me of sorry, are you back now?
I got a call. I have my phone's on do not disturb. You all have to tell me how to do this because my phone is on do not disturb.
You're just more popular than me.
I just got a call. I don't know. It just overrides.
Well,
anyway, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it reminds me of what Rachel Hollis was talking about at our conference. And it was just like, like own your journey. Like this is your path to take. I kind of lost my train of thought when you left, and I'm also sitting here thinking of when I called you dramatic and then I accidentally slapped you and then you chased me around the house and I thought my life was going to end.
You slapped me?
At
so
Aunt
rude.
Dee's house. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to. Are you kidding? I would never open that can of worms. But I did. And I like slapped you and it was like really hard. And then you like had this look like a demon had fully taken over. And I ran for my life. And I
what you don't know is a demon is part of my identity. Totally kidding. Totally kidding.
Well, anyway, that's as good a spot as any is to probably wrap it up. Do you have any other parting thoughts about identity before I wrap it up?
This is a tricky one, man. Like it's totally tricky one. And I think it was Tom. Hey, Tom from in the house. I think Rachel also said that I wanted to tie in this. Don't let someone else's 2 cents bankrupt you. How powerful is that, right? Like somebody else's thought just taking everything out of your bank, since that was the link to our financial identity being threatened, right? Like, but yeah, this is super tricky. And this is a big one in terms of what we know versus what we don't know. This is fully like, we don't know a lot. We don't know a lot about this one.
Totally.
Just conceptual.
And just what we have felt to be true. I'm just thinking of like more Rachel Hollis stuff. She just was so great. But what she had said about like maybe we are exactly the person we're supposed to be. Like instead of getting smaller, shrinking down, changing who you are, molding to other people's, perception of you.
Expectations. Mm-hmm.
I just love that she said like, we are born unique. We are born to do the things that we have on our hearts and on our minds, and we shouldn't be ashamed for that, So anyway.
I do hope that you guys walk away with the knowledge that what you do, where you live, who you're with, like isn't tied. I mean, I really just want to say that again, because that's super easy. Those are easy things that we mistakenly tie our worth and identity, because those are linked, your identity and your worth and your value. It's all interconnected. And that's a slippery slope, because yeah, we can lose our titles and we can decide we don't want that anymore. And it's really hard to walk away from something that is no longer serving you if you feel it's linked to who you are, but it isn't. It isn't. Maybe someone needs to hear that today. So I'm just going to say it again. That is not who you are. You are free.
Maybe that makes you feel like a weight has been lifted, is what our hope and intention is, that those things that make you feel bad, they probably are not your true identity. And it's okay. It's okay to transition and be uncomfortable and not really know, but that's not your identity. That's not who you are. You are unique and beautiful and awesome. Right?
Totally.
So that's super just cool. What we know. There's stuff, like Wendy said, that we don't know. I wanted to remind you guys about our YouTube channel. I've had a lot of people lately asking, like, oh, if I miss the lives, like, how do I watch them? We have a YouTube channel. You can search on YouTube When and Sign Wit, as Wendy said. It's actually an ampersand. Ampersand.
Ampersand. That's a great word.
It is, once you know what it means. So you can
never heard it in my life.
Look it up that way and subscribe, and then it'll come to your email when we have a new video, or you can just pop over to YouTube and find us there. Check out what you like. Don't forget, if you want to be entered to win that free gift that we're giving away, share this video. Please, please share, like, love, comment. We love it, and we are loving doing this. Share the video, make it public, or tag us. Yeah, see, Thomas knows.
He has ... which means
he knows.
It can mean anything.
And you also have to follow us on Instagram. So our handles are in the comments of this video. Follow us on Instagram, share this video. We will announce the winner next week. Thank you guys for the love. Oh, and next week we will be talking about, what did we decide? Authenticity. Right?
Authenticity. Another concept.
Being authentic. So we look forward to being our authentic selves next Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. PT. So,
all right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.